You are not poor because you lack money. You are poor because of what you repeat every day. I know this statement might make you uncomfortable because it doesn't blame circumstances. It doesn't blame your starting point, and it doesn't give you a reason to delay. But be honest with me for a moment. If everything you are doing every day is truly leading you to wealth, then why are you still here? I have met many people who work harder than anyone I know. They wake up early, go home late. They are not afraid of hard work. They always say, I just need more time, then everything will be fine. But year after year, their lives hardly change. Not because they are lazy, but because they are repeating the wrong things. Have you ever wondered why some people don't seem too busy, yet their lives gradually become prosperous, while others are always busy, always trying, but money keeps slipping away like sand through their fingers? I used to think the answer was opportunity, but then I realized opportunity does not create people. People create and seize opportunity. Let me give you an image. A farmer plants seeds in the ground. On the first day, nothing happens. In the first week, nothing changes. Even after a month, the ground remains so silent that one might doubt whether anything is happening beneath it. But then one day, a small green sprout begins to emerge. And from that moment, everything starts to change. You see, life works the same way. What you see today is not the result of today, but the result of what you have quietly repeated long before. Wealth is the same. It does not come from a breakthrough moment. It does not come from a life-changing opportunity. It comes from small habits, repeated every day until you hardly notice they are shaping who you are. I have spent many years observing successful people and also those who fail, and I realized a simple truth, but one that few dare to face. The rich and the poor are not different in what they do when people are watching. They are different in what they do when no one is watching. Those habits are not loud, not flashy. They do not make you feel instantly successful, but over time, they accumulate, they grow, and one day they become destiny. In this video, I will not tell you how to make money quickly. I will not promise you an easy path, but I will share with you 7 habits, quiet but extremely powerful. Habits that have shaped and continue to shape the lives of the wealthy people you see today. And the last habit may change the way you see your entire life. Because when you change what you repeat every day, you don't just change your actions, you change who you become. Habit 1, the habit of long-term thinking. I want you to imagine a vast field, and in that field there are 2 farmers. The first one walks out every morning, looks at his land, and asks himself, what can I harvest today? He moves quickly, works quickly, looks for anything he can pick immediately, no matter how small. If he finds nothing, he starts to feel discouraged, and gradually he loses patience. The second one also walks out to the field every day, but he does not look at what he can harvest today. He looks at what he is planting for 6 months from now, a year from now, even many years later. He bends down, tends the soil, he plants seeds, he waters them, and then he goes back without needing to see immediate results. Who do you think will become wealthier? Life is no different from that field. Most people live like the first farmer. They constantly ask, what will I get right now? How much can I earn today? Can I be comfortable right now? And do you know what happens? They begin to trade their future for present comfort. They spend money before thinking about investing. They choose entertainment instead of learning. They choose comfort instead of growth. I'm not saying that's wrong, but if you repeat it every day, it becomes a direction, and that direction does not lead to wealth. I once met a man who worked very hard. He had a stable job and income enough to live on. Every month he had a little money left, not much, but some. And every month he rewarded himself. A better meal, a new item, a short vacation. Sounds reasonable, right? But what he didn't realize was he never gave his money a chance to grow. Meanwhile, I also knew another person. His income was not much different. But whenever he had extra money, he asked a different question. How can this money work for me in the future? He was not always right. Sometimes he was wrong. Sometimes he lost money. But one thing never changed. He always thought long term. After many years, the first man was still living the same way. The second had built a foundation where money began to generate more money. Do you see the difference? Not in how much they earned, but in how they viewed time. Poor people often see time as something to spend. Rich people see time as something to invest. And that way of thinking does not form in a day. It is built from very small choices. When you face a decision, do you choose what is easy right now or what benefits you later? When you have a free hour, do you choose to kill time or to build something for your future? When you have money in your hand, Do you ask, what can I spend? Or how can I multiply it? I once had to ask myself those questions, and I didn't always like the answers. Because long-term thinking often comes with short-term discomfort. You have to say no to certain pleasures. You have to be patient when you don't see results. You have to believe in something that does not yet exist. But remember this, no one becomes wealthy because of what they do in a single day. They become wealthy because of what they repeat over many years with a vision far beyond the present. I once said, don't hope things get easier, hope you become better. And to become better, you have to learn to see further. Beyond your current emotions, beyond immediate convenience, beyond even what you are seeing right now. Because your life will always follow the direction your thinking leads. If you only see today, you will live for today. But if you begin to see the future, you will begin to build it. And here is what I want you to ask yourself right now. Are you living for immediate results? Or are you building a life you can be proud of in 5 years, 10 years? Your answer is not in your thoughts. It is in what you do every day. And when you begin to change how you view time, you will realize something. Not everything in life needs to happen immediately. The most important things always take time. And when you accept that, you are no longer in a rush. You are no longer confused when you don't see results. You begin to stay consistent with your path, but long-term thinking alone is not enough, because there is something even more powerful than thinking, something that determines whether you can stay on that path. That is how you control yourself, especially in moments when emotions drive your decisions. And that is the next habit I want to talk to you about. Habit 2, the habit of controlling emotions before money. I want you to imagine a boat, not a large, steady boat in the ocean, but a small boat drifting among unexpected waves. Some days the sea is calm. Some days the waves are fierce. But what determines where that boat goes is not the waves. It is the person steering it. Your life is the same. Money is not what destroys you. Opportunity is not what saves you. Your emotions, in moments related to money, are what quietly determine where you will end up. I have met people, when they have money in their hands, they become excited. They feel they deserve a reward. They spend a little more than a little more. Not because they are stupid, but because they are guided by emotions. And then I have met others. When faced with an opportunity, they become afraid. They overanalyze, they hesitate, delay, and eventually do nothing. Not because they lack opportunity, but because they cannot control their emotions. You see, poor people often don't lose money because they lack intelligence. They lose money because they cannot control their emotions when it comes to money. They buy when they feel good. They sell when they feel afraid. They delay when they are uncertain. And they act impulsively when stimulated. Meanwhile, those who build wealth learn one thing very early. Emotions are something to observe, not something to obey. I remember one time I stood before a financial decision. Not a big decision, but enough to make me feel anxious. In my mind, at that moment, there were two voices. One voice whispered, "Don't do it too risky, keep your money safe." The other voice, softer but clearer, "If you don't start learning how to manage money, you will always just keep it and never grow it." I realized that was not a battle between right and wrong. It was a battle between emotion and reason. And if I let emotion decide, I would always choose safety, but that safety would also keep me in the same place. Do you recognize this in your life? When you have money, do you feel the urge to spend it immediately just to feel better? When you face an opportunity, do you feel afraid and choose to do nothing? When you face financial difficulty, do you panic and make rushed decisions? If the answer is yes, you are not alone. Most people are like that. But this is where the difference begins to form. Not in whether you have emotions, but in what you do with them. People who cannot control emotions, let emotions lead. People who can control emotions, pause, observe, and choose to act consciously. They do not buy just because they want to. They do not invest just because others are doing it. They do not withdraw just because they are afraid. They ask a simple but powerful question. Does this decision serve my future? Not do I like it? Not does it make me feel good, but does this bring me closer to the life I want? You see, this is the intersection between the first habit and the second habit. Long-term thinking gives you direction, but emotional control helps you stay on that path. Because there will be many times you know what you should do, but you don't want to do it. You know you should save, but you want to spend. You know you should invest in yourself, but you want to rest. You know you should be patient, but you want results immediately. And in those moments, emotions will always speak louder than reason. If you don't train your ability to control them, you will always return to old habits. I'm not saying you have to become cold. No, I'm just saying you need to learn to create a pause between emotion and action. Just a small pause, just a few seconds, to ask yourself, am I acting based on emotion or based on my future? That pause is where your life begins to change. I had to learn this not in one day, but through many mistakes. There were times I let emotions lead, and I paid the price, not only in money, but in time, in opportunities, and even in confidence. But each time, I learned to pause a little longer, observe a little more clearly, and choose a little better. And over time, those a little better choices began to accumulate. They did not create immediate results, but they created something more important, a version of myself that I could trust when making decisions. And when you can trust yourself, you are no longer pulled by waves of emotion. You begin to steer your own boat, no matter how the sea changes. But remember this, emotional control is not the destination. It is only the foundation, because after you can hold the wheel steady, you need to know where you are going and how to keep moving forward every day. And that is when another habit begins to show its power. A very small habit, but if you maintain it long enough, it can completely change the trajectory of your life. That is how you learn, even when no one asks you to do so. Habit 3, the habit of learning every day, even when no one asks. I want you to imagine a drop of water falling onto a hard rock. One drop, then another drop, day after day. If you look in one day, nothing changes. In a week, still the same. In a month, the rock is still there, cold and unmoving. But if you come back after a year, you will begin to see a small dent. And if enough time passes, those seemingly weak drops of water will carve through an entire rock. You see, power does not lie in intensity. It lies in repetition. Learning is the same. Most people think that to change their lives, they need a big leap, a big decision, a big opportunity. But the truth I have learned is that people who change their lives rarely do it with leaps. They do it with small steps, repeated every day in silence. I once met a young man. He did not come from a wealthy family. He did not have many connections, nor did he have any special advantage. But he had one habit, a habit that most people overlook. Every day he spent 30 minutes learning, not because anyone asked him to, not to pass an exam, not to prove anything to others, simply to become better than yesterday. 30 minutes sounds insignificant. But think about it, 30 minutes a day equals more than 180 hours a year, 180 hours focused on upgrading himself. Meanwhile, there are people who spend hundreds of hours consuming things that do not help them move forward. After a few years, the gap between these two people is no longer small. It becomes a gap people call luck, but in reality, it is just the result of what they have quietly repeated. I remember my early days when I began to realize that knowledge is not just something to know, it is something that changes how you see the world. I started reading more, listening more, reflecting more. No one forced me to do that. No one paid me to learn. But I realized something. If you do not actively learn, you will passively repeat. You will repeat old thoughts, repeat old behaviors, and eventually repeat the very life you are trying to escape. Have you ever felt like you are living the same day over and over again? The same job, the same habits, the same results. If you do not introduce something new into your life, nothing new can appear. And learning is how you introduce the new. It does not have to be big. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. 1 page a day, one new idea a day, one different perspective a day. You do not need to change everything in one day. You just need to keep changing little by little. I once asked myself a very simple question. If I keep living like this for another 5 years, who will I become? And the answer made me uncomfortable. Not because it was bad, but because it was too similar to the present. And that is when I understood, if I want a different life, I must become a different person. And if I want to become a different person, I must learn the things my current self does not know. You see, learning is not about accumulating information. Learning is about expanding your own limits. Every time you learn something new, you do not just know one more thing. You are changing how you think, how you view problems, how you make decisions, and over time, those small changes begin to affect everything: how you work, how you communicate, how you handle money, and then your life begins to change, not because of one big leap, but because of hundreds of small changes accumulating. I am not saying learning is always easy. There will be days you are tired, you do not want to read, do not want to think, do not want to try any harder, but that is exactly when this habit becomes most important. Because if you only learn when you are motivated, you will learn very little. But if you learn even when you do not want to, you are building something stronger: intellectual discipline, a capability that very few people possess, but creates a huge difference. I have learned that you do not need to be great at the beginning. You just need to not stop. Because every day you continue, you are moving a little further than most people who have already quit. And one day, you will look back and realize you have gone much farther than where you started. Not because you are more special, but because you are more persistent. But remember, learning is only the first step. Because you can know a lot, but if you do not turn it into action, it will not change anything. And this is where many people get stuck. They read a lot, they know a lot, but their lives do not change. Why? Because they lack one thing, something that has nothing to do with knowledge, but determines whether you can use that knowledge or not. It is what you do when no one is watching. It is how you act when no one reminds you. And that is the next habit I want to share with you. Habit 4, the habit of discipline when no one is watching. I want you to imagine a room, no spotlight, no applause, no one watching you, just you and your choices. No one knows whether you do it or not. No one judges if you skip it. No one rewards you if you try. And in that space, your true self is formed. Most people only perform well when someone is watching. They work hard when the boss is there. They try when they are being evaluated. They act when there is pressure. But when no one is watching, everything starts to change. They procrastinate. They make excuses. They compromise with themselves. I will do it later. I'm tired today. It's okay to rest a bit. No one will know. And do you know what happens? Those small words, those very small compromises, do not disappear. They accumulate. They become habits. And those habits gradually become who you are. I once realized a truth that made me pause for a long time. You do not become who you want to be. You become who you repeatedly are when no one is watching. That is where true discipline exists. Not in big moments. Not when you are motivated, but in very small moments, very quiet, and very easy to ignore. I remember a period when no one required me to do better. No one checked on me, no external pressure, and that was when I began to clearly see who I was. There were days I chose to do the right thing, even though no one knew, but there were also days I chose the easier path. And what made me reflect was not the days I failed, but how easy it was to fail. No immediate consequences, no one reminding me. Nothing happened at that moment. But over time, I began to see a difference. On days I stayed disciplined, I felt a little stronger. On days I compromised, I felt a little weaker. And that feeling was not temporary. It was a signal showing whether you are moving forward or slowly slipping backward. Have you ever promised yourself something, and then you were the one who broke that promise? You said you would start earlier, but you hit snooze. You said you would focus more, but you let yourself get distracted. You said you would do it today, but then you let the day pass. And each time that happens, you do not just lose an action, you lose a piece of trust in yourself. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to do hard things. Discipline is about keeping your word to yourself, even when no one requires you to. Because if you cannot trust your own words, how can you build a solid life? I have learned that every time you keep your word to yourself, you are building a brick. Just a small brick. But if you place enough bricks, you will build a foundation. And that foundation is real confidence. Not confidence from praise, not confidence from temporary success, but confidence from knowing that you can trust yourself. You say you will do it, and you do it. That is all. But be honest, that is not easy, because there will be many times you have no motivation. There will be days you do not want to try any harder. There will be moments no one is watching, no one cares, and there is no clear reason for you to continue. And in those moments, you will have to make a choice. Do you choose emotion or commitment? Do you choose ease or the person you want to become? I cannot make that choice for you, but I can tell you this: your life will always reflect the choices you make when no one is watching. Not when you shine, but when you are quiet. Not when you are recognized, but when you are alone. And if you can stay disciplined in those moments, you will become someone very few people can become. Someone who can move forward even without motivation. Someone who can continue even without immediate reward. Someone who does not need to be pushed because they have become their own drive. But remember, discipline is not everything. You can be very disciplined, but if you are going in the wrong direction, you are just moving faster toward the wrong outcome. That is why, after you build discipline, you need something else. Something that ensures what you are doing actually leads you to wealth. That is how you treat your money. Not how you earn it, but how you keep it and make it grow. And that is the next habit I want to talk about. Habit 5, the habit of managing money instead of chasing money. I want you to imagine you are trying to carry water home every day. You work hard, you bring back a full bucket of water. But when you pour the water into your tank, you do not realize that the bottom of the tank is leaking. On the first day, you do not notice. On the second day, you begin to feel something is off. On the third day, you start to feel tired. You work more, carry more water, but the tank is never full. You can continue like that for many years, and you will think that the problem is you are not bringing enough water. But the truth is, the problem is the tank. Money works the same way. Most people focus on making money. They want more. They try harder. They work longer hours. But very few people stop to ask, how am I keeping money? You can earn a lot of money, but if you do not know how to manage it, you will always start over from zero. I have met people with high incomes, but who are always struggling. And I have also met people whose income is not outstanding, but who have built stability and gradually become wealthy. The difference is not in how much they earn, but in how they treat that money. People who do not understand money see money as something to spend. People who understand money see money as a tool that can work for them. I remember a man, every time he received money, he felt relieved. He thought, finally I can relax a bit, and then the money disappeared. Not because he was wasteful, but because he had no system, no plan, no principles, no control, only reaction. Money came and he reacted. Money went and he reacted again. And when you live in a reactive state, you never control money. On the other hand, I also knew another person. Whenever he received money, he did not rush. He paused. He divided the money, not randomly, but according to clear principles. One part for living, one part for investing, one part for learning, one part for emergencies. Not because he earned more, but because he understood that if you do not decide in advance, money will decide for you. And usually, it will follow your old habits. Have you ever received money, and then after a short time, you did not know where it went? Not because you did not care, but because you did not track it. No awareness. And that is exactly what makes money something you cannot keep. I learned a very important lesson. Money does not disappear randomly. It always follows a path, and that path is created by your habits. If your habit is to spend immediately, money will disappear quickly. If your habit is to delay, you will never start accumulating. If your habit is not paying attention, you will always be surprised when money is gone. But if you build a different habit, a habit of managing money, in a conscious way, everything begins to change. You begin to see more clearly. You begin to control the flow. You begin to create a gap between earning and spending. And in that gap, you begin to build assets. Not in one day, not in 1 month, but over time, those small decisions begin to accumulate. I am not saying you have to become a financial expert. You do not need complex formulas. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to start caring about your money, asking simple questions. Where am I spending my money? Is this really necessary? How can this money serve me longer? You see, wealth is not just about making money. Wealth is the ability to keep and grow that money. And that ability does not come from luck. It comes from habits. The habit of observing, the habit of controlling, The habit of deciding in advance instead of reacting afterward. I used to think that as long as I earned enough money, everything would be fine. But I was wrong. Because if you do not change how you manage money, no matter how much you earn, the final result will be the same. And that has nothing to do with money. It has to do with who you are. You can change your income, but if you do not change your habits, you will not change your life. But remember, money does not exist in a vacuum. It is always influenced by your environment, by the people you meet, the conversations you hear, the standards you accept. You can be very disciplined. You can manage money well. But if you are in an environment where people do not think that way, you will always be pulled back. And that is why, after you learn how to manage money, you need to look at something even more important. What environment are you living in? And the people around you, are they pushing you forward or holding you back? And that is the next habit I want to share with you. Habit 6, the habit of choosing your environment and the people around you. I want you to imagine a seed, very small but full of potential. If you place it in fertile soil, watered regularly, given sunlight, it will grow. No need to force it. No need to push it. With the right environment, it will develop, but if you place that same seed in dry soil, no water, no light, can you blame the seed for being weak? Or was the problem never the seed? Human life works the same way. You can have potential. You can have discipline. You can be trying. But if your environment does not support your growth, you will always feel like you are fighting just to stay where you are. I did not understand this before. I used to believe that as long as I was strong enough, I could overcome anything. And to some extent, that is true. But then I realized a truth I could not deny. Environment is always stronger than willpower. You can resist it for a while. But if you stay in the wrong environment long enough, you will begin to be influenced. Not immediately, but very slowly. The conversations around you start to become the way you think. The standards people accept start to become your limits. The behaviors repeated daily in that environment start to become your habits. And before you realize it, you are no longer the person you once wanted to become. You are simply the result of the environment you are in. I remember someone. He always said he wanted to change his life. He read books, watched motivational content, talked about his goals. But every day, he returned to the same group of friends, the same conversations, the same thinking, the same habits, and after some time, nothing changed. Not because he did not try hard enough, but because his environment kept pulling him back to the starting point. Do you recognize this in your life? Have you ever felt that you are trying to move forward, but no one around you thinks that way? Have you ever felt that you want to change, but everything around you pulls you back to the old path? If the answer is yes, then maybe the problem is not you. It is the environment. And this is where this habit becomes important. Wealthy people do not just build good habits. They build environments where those habits become natural. They choose people who have higher standards than them, not to feel inferior, but to be pulled upward. They place themselves in environments where growth is normal, where learning is not strange, where discipline is not difficult. Because when you are in the right environment, you do not have to fight yourself every day. You just need to follow the right flow. I once changed my environment, not by changing everything at once, but through small steps. I started filtering what I listened to, what I read, what I watched. I reduced time with people who did not help me become better. Not because they were bad, but because they were not going in the same direction. And I searched for people with different thinking, different standards, different perspectives on life. At first it was uncomfortable. You feel like you do not belong. You feel like you are not good enough. But that feeling is a sign you are in the right place. Because if you always feel comfortable, you might be in an environment that is too small for your potential. You see, you do not need to become the best immediately. You just need to be around people who are moving in the right direction. And over time, you will begin to change. Not because you try harder, but because your environment is shaping you. I have learned that you cannot build a big life in a small environment. You cannot think big. If you are surrounded by limitations, you cannot grow if you are always being pulled back. And most importantly, you do not need to wait for someone else to change your environment. You can start with yourself, every small choice, every relationship, every source of information, because everything you are exposed to every day is contributing to who you become. And if you choose correctly, you will not have to struggle as much. You will be lifted up. But remember, environment and people are only supporting factors, because no matter how good your environment is, if you do not act, nothing will change. You can learn, you can listen, you can be inspired. But if you do not start, everything remains just ideas. And this is where many people stop. They wait until they are ready. They wait until they are confident. They wait until everything is perfect. But life waits for no one. And sometimes, the only thing you need to do is start even when you are not ready. And that is the final habit, but also the one that few people dare to practice. Habit 7, the habit of taking action even when you are not ready. I want you to imagine a ship standing still in the harbor. Everything is ready. The ship is perfectly designed. The captain has learned enough theory. The map has been carefully drawn. There is only one thing left to depart. But that ship remains still because the captain is waiting for perfect weather, waiting for clearer signals, waiting for absolute confidence. And do you know what happens? That ship never sails. Not because it is not good enough, but because it waits too long. The lives of many people are unfolding in the same way. They learn a lot. They prepare carefully. They think deeply, but they do not start. They say, I will do it when I'm ready. I will start when I feel more confident. I will act when everything is clear. But the truth is, you will never feel ready, not because you are weak, but because the nature of big things always comes with uncertainty. I remember the first time I faced an important decision. I did not know whether I would succeed. I did not know whether I was capable. I only knew one thing: if I did not start, I would never know how far I could go. And that is when I realized action is not the result of confidence. Action is what creates confidence. Most people think, before I act, I need to feel certain. But in reality, you only feel certain after you have acted. You do not learn to swim by standing on the shore. You do not learn to walk by thinking about every step. You learn by stepping in and accepting the initial awkwardness. I have seen many people get stuck in the loop of preparation. They read one more book. They watch one more video. They wait for one more moment. But they do not realize that every time they delay, they are reinforcing a habit, the habit of not acting. And that habit quietly shapes their life. Have you ever felt that you know what you should do, but you do not do it? Not because you are lazy, but because you are waiting for a feeling, a signal, a guarantee that will never come. And while you wait, time keeps moving, opportunities pass, life continues. I have learned something very important. You do not need to see the whole path to take the first step. You just need enough courage to leave your current position. Because when you start acting, you will learn things you cannot learn by thinking. You will see opportunities you could not see before. You will understand yourself more clearly. You will grow not through theory, but through experience. I am not saying action will always lead to immediate success. There will be mistakes. There will be failures. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. But remember, mistakes are not a sign you are going the wrong way. Mistakes are a sign you are moving forward. People who do not act do not make mistakes, but they also do not progress. People who act may stumble, but each time they get closer to what they want. You see, the difference between the rich and the poor is not that they are not afraid. Wealthy people are also afraid. They also doubt. They are also uncertain, but they have a different habit. They act even while they are afraid. They start even when they are not perfect. They move forward even without all the answers. And over time, those actions begin to accumulate. They create experience. They create confidence. They create results, not in one day, not in 1 week. But if you look back after a few years, you will see a huge gap. Not because they are smarter, not because they are luckier, but because they started earlier. I want you to ask yourself a question. What is something you know you should do, but have not started? Not because you cannot, but because you are waiting. If you keep waiting, a year from now you will still be here. But if you start, even small, even imperfect, you are changing the trajectory of your life, not with a big decision, but with a real action, and that is what most people do not do. They think they need more time, more knowledge, more certainty. But the truth is, the only thing you need is to start. Because when you start, you are not just changing your actions, you are sending a signal to yourself. I am someone who takes action. And when you begin to see yourself that way, everything starts to change. Not just what you do, but who you become. And when you combine all these habits together, long-term thinking, emotional control, daily learning, discipline when no one is watching, money management, choosing your environment, and taking action even when you are not ready, you are not just building a better life. You are building a version of yourself where wealth becomes the inevitable result, and that is where everything comes together, where you begin to see the bigger picture, where you understand that wealth is not the destination, but the consequence. And that is also where we need to pause for a moment to reflect on this entire journey before you continue on your own path. I want you to pause for a moment, not to listen to me, but to look at your own life. Not what you wish for, but what you are repeating every day. Because in the end, wealth is not a moment, not a leap, not a sudden opportunity. Wealth is a result, the result of how you think about time, the result of how you control your emotions, the result of whether you learn every day, the result of the choices you make when no one is watching, the result of how you treat money, the result of the environment you choose, and finally, whether you act or keep waiting. You see, none of these things are big at the beginning. None of them make you wealthy overnight. But when you repeat them day after day, week after week, year after year, they begin to accumulate. And one day, you look back and realize you have gone much farther than where you once stood. Not because you are luckier than others, but because you are more consistent with small things. I have spent my whole life observing people, and if there is one thing I deeply believe, it is this: you do not become what you want. You become what you repeat. So the question is not, do you want to become wealthy? The real question is, are you willing to change what you do every day to become the kind of person who can create wealth? Because if you do not change your habits, you are choosing to keep your current life. And if you do change, even a little, but long enough, you are starting a completely different journey. If this video made you think, hit like so you do not forget this. Subscribe so we can go further together on this journey. And if you know someone who is stuck, share this video with them. I want to ask you one question and answer it honestly. What habit are you repeating every day that is actually determining your life, but you have never faced it directly? Remember this: life does not change when you wish it changes, when you decide to become a different person. And finally, I truly appreciate that you stayed until the end of this video.